Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So, yesterday we completed that all the CRUD operation related example. I uploaded entire project. You try that project completely. So, everyone started. You designed it, practiced everything working fine, right? So now we will change into uh, the concept of TypeScript today, right? So now in real world projects, some companies are using um, React with the TypeScript. So now it is mandatory to mention both React with the JavaScript and TypeScript in resume. So several projects are in JavaScript and some are in TypeScript. So what is the point about TypeScript and why we need to use it? Actually, first question here is we are using JavaScript for client side. What is issue with JavaScript? In order to understand what is TypeScript, first we should know what are the issues with JavaScript. Tell me what are the issues with JavaScript. JavaScript as a language, what are its issues? What are the problems in JavaScript? First important problem with JavaScript, it is not a strongly typed language. JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. That is one very big problem with JavaScript. Strongly typed already we know. What is meant by strongly typed? Strongly typed means what is meant by strongly typed? Strongly typed means there is no restriction in data type. In a variable, you can store any kind of value and you can assign any type of value. For example, x is 10. In this case, what is x? X is number. But later into x, when I store some string, so x is string. And into x later, if I store some true, then x is boolean. That means it changes. It is going to change according to the value that you have assigned. So JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. There is no restriction for data types. So we can store any type of value. So in one reference, you have a number. In that same reference, you can store a string later. It will not restrict. For that, what we need extra? For that, we need extra validations. That means even to verify data type also, you need a validation. You saw in yup, we used a validation where we first verify is it a number or a string. So after that, we verify whether it is required or not. So it is not a strongly typed language. Another important point is it is not implicitly strictly typed. It is not implicitly strictly typed. In many interviews, they ask for freshers, they ask what is difference between strongly typed and strictly typed. What is strongly typed? What is strictly typed? Strongly typed is about strongly typed is about data type. Strictly typed is about the rules of programming rules. You already know in JavaScript, we have to turn strict mode on. Manually, we have to turn strict mode on. How to turn strict mode on? Use strict. By using use strict, we have to turn the strict mode on. In JavaScript, we have to manually do that. What is that strict mode? Strict mode will not allow developers to violate the coding standards. Because without following coding standards, when you write some code, JavaScript can still run it. But that leads to lot of inconsistency in coding. One developer writes in one way, another writes in another way. We can force the developer to write as per standards. For example, you already know what is it you learned. Suppose we have a script in that we have x equal to 10 and the console.log x. This is a valid one. In JavaScript, if you write like this, it will work. But this is not good because x is a variable you never declared. Without declaring a variable, you are using a variable, but still it will work. You know, it will treat x as a global variable. And important, it is still valid, but we don't want like this. Without declaring a variable, we should not allow developer to use a variable. Then what we will do? We will turn on the strict mode. We will put what? Use strict. And when you turn on strict mode, now this is invalid. This is not valid. You have to declare and we have to use. So JavaScript is not inbuilt strict. You have to explicitly make it strict. And JavaScript is not strongly typed. Strongly typed is about data type. Strictly typed is about rules, about the rules and standards of programming. JavaScript is not strongly typed, it is not strictly typed. Another important is it is not an OOP language. It supports only few features of OOP, object oriented programming. So that means extensibility, extensibility, extensibility and code level security, code level security issues. It is not easy to extend and it is not easy to secure the code level content. So JavaScript have lot of such drawbacks. So these are all the major issues with JavaScript. So as a developer, when you are using JavaScript, so you know all these basic things. So JavaScript have lot of technical issues. So in that case, for developers to handle all these, they need additional implementation. That means to verify whether it is a number or not, they need some extra validation. To turn on the strict mode, they need to set explicitly. Like that, everything they need to do additionally. To overcome the issues of JavaScript, what is the solution of these problems? That means what are the issues with the JavaScript? These are all issues. What is the solution for that? Solution actually, see, browser can understand only JavaScript. Then without using JavaScript, there is no point. So you have to use JavaScript. But for a developer, JavaScript is not so convenient because it lacks lot of features. That is the reason for developers' convenience, lot of scripts are tried. So many people tried different types of scripts, but they haven't made good impact as an alternative for JavaScript. Even today in browser, there is no other alternative for JavaScript. In browser, only one script can run. And what is it? JavaScript. But there is no good alternative for a developer to use JavaScript. Because, for example, you have CSS. So in CSS also, lot of reusability problems, lot of code you have to rewrite again and again, lot of calculation issues, so much is there. How to overcome issues of CSS? In real-time projects, reusability issues will come. So how to overcome those problems of CSS? To overcome the problems of CSS, developers use languages like SAS. They use SAS and they use less. We have SAS and less. Do you know in several companies, they don't directly write CSS. They write SAS in SAS and less because SAS and less provides some programming abilities like you can write conditions, loops, and you can resolve lengthy problems in a shorter way. You can write functions, right? The advantage of using this is you can write the logic in a simple way and you can achieve the target. But unfortunately, these are not understandable to browser. That means browser can understand only CSS. Then why developers are using them? Because they can utilize the facilities of these languages and they can write the code in a shorter way. They can achieve lengthy issues in a shorter way, but they cannot directly understandable to, they are not directly understandable to the browser. Then what will happen? So this is related into what? CSS. Our developers will write in the best way what they are convenient with. Finally, it is translated into CSS. That means a compiler will take care about it, translate that entire code into CSS. So you don't write CSS, you write in your way. It is translated into CSS and it is given to the browser. Browser is using CSS, but developers are not using CSS. they use SAS. Same concept here. To finally use JavaScript only. They have to finally use JavaScript only. But directly using JavaScript is not satisfying to developer. That is the reason lot of alternatives were tried. One of the good alternative for JavaScript was uh, actually Google started one script called Google started a script called AtScript. Started AtScript. Google started one language called AtScript, and the intention of that script is to overcome the problems of JavaScript, to make it strongly typed, strictly typed, and with good extensible features and all. But why this Google started this for their technology called Angular? Google started this AtScript for their technology called Angular. But Microsoft is already having a similar script called TypeScript. They already have similar script called TypeScript. But Microsoft is not a open source community at that time. Now it is open source. That means they have TypeScript but made it available to public. They were internally using it. Even so many languages are internally used by Google and Microsoft. They are not available to everybody. So internally for their applications, they use certain languages. They are not provided to public general. So TypeScript was developed by Microsoft, and Microsoft using this TypeScript as a language for their issues of web. Actually, it was designed by Anders Hazelberg. Anders Hazelberg. He developed this TypeScript. Actually, he was the architect of a language called C Sharp. He is the architect of the language C Sharp. He developed this TypeScript. So I will give a point. So here I will give a detailed concept here. So these are the issues of JavaScript. So now the question is, what is solution? What is the solution for all these problems? So actually, Google started a language called AtScript. AtScript in early 2014. Actually, they started AtScript in 2014. During 2014, they started this AtScript as a language. Script as a language. Uh, Actually, it have all the solutions. They were not completely. They haven't completely designed. They were just experimenting on how to overcome the problems of JavaScript. And suddenly, this Google, when it started AdScript, Microsoft saw that Google is trying something which is already there with Microsoft. So then Microsoft and Google communities so had several meetings, and they come to a final conclusion that okay, better we will make this TypeScript public and open source so that anybody can use it. And due to that, this AdScript was never released. They started AdScript, but Google saw that TypeScript was better than that. Means already they developed it. Then why to waste time in again investing in this? That is the reason Google stopped its AdScript. and they migrated to TypeScript. So people who learn Angular like technology from Google, they have to use the language of Microsoft called TypeScript. Angular is no longer used with JavaScript anymore. It's strictly Angular is using what? TypeScript. But for React people, we have choice. We can use JavaScript or we can have TypeScript. For Angular, there is no choice now. In the current generation, Angular means only TypeScript. You cannot use Angular with JavaScript. Earlier we used to use, but now not. That means Microsoft have a language called TypeScript. Have a language called TypeScript. So designed by Anders Hazelberg. Designed by Anders Hazelberg. Anders Hazelberg, so he's the architect, so the lead architect of C sharp language. He's the lead architect of C sharp language, which is a Microsoft language actually. And TypeScript is the solution now for the problems that we have in JavaScript. And actually, what are the features of TypeScript? What are the features of TypeScript? Means how it is good about what is good about TypeScript, how it is good is actually point is TypeScript is strongly typed and strictly typed. TypeScript is strictly typed and strictly typed language. JavaScript strongly typed and strictly typed. It is explicitly typed and it is not at all strongly typed. But script is strongly typed and strictly typed language. Another important point is so supports it is an OOP language. It is oriented programming language. That means it supports all the features of OOP. What is the advantage of supporting OOP is easy to extend and code level security. Code level security. However, other general features I am not giving reusability, separation, and all are the general OOP features. Main concepts will. So it is easy to extend and the level securities are present. Another major point is it is built in TypeScript. This is the major concept here. It is built in TypeScript. What is the advantage of this is so it supports low features. It supports low level features which can directly interact with hard. It supports low level features which can directly interact with hardware services. Actual concept is generally other OOP languages, various other OOP languages, they are built on the platform of another language. The OOP languages are built on the platform of some another language, but TypeScript is built in TypeScript. One of the great ability of TypeScript is it is a native language of operating system. Operating system can directly understand a language means it is very high level. That means it supports low level features with high level abilities, which majority of OOP languages don't have. One of the drawback of OOP languages, they don't support low level features. So, but this supports low level features. It is lightweight, it is faster. And the major point about TypeScript is you are learning TypeScript for web related issues, because in JavaScript web development you are facing some issues. To overcome them you are using TypeScript, but originally TypeScript is a huge language which can individually build large scale applications like Java, like C sharp. It is a separate language which can build individually large scale application. That means don't think that TypeScript is developed for React or Angular. It is used by you just as an alternative for JavaScript, but it is more than what you use in React. Individually TypeScript is a huge language used to build large scale applications. So actually typescript can individually build large scale applications. Large scale applications you can build by using TypeScript. So it is not what usually Angular and React people think about it. So it is more than that. But Angular React people need only web related features from it. We don't want entire TypeScript. We want only the TypeScript which can replace JavaScript. That means remember, TypeScript is an not a replacement. So TypeScript is not replacement for JavaScript. So it is just an alternative that transcompiles into JavaScript. That transcompiles into JavaScript. Transcompiles means it will translate everything into finally JavaScript only. That means what developer will do, developer will write in TypeScript and it is translated into JavaScript and it is provided to the browser. That is the concept. If browser can understand only JavaScript, then why developer have to write in TypeScript is he can save a lot of his time in writing lengthy logics to achieve a small issue. Suppose I want, suppose I want a uh, property in class as read only. Then in JavaScript, how do you do? If I want a property in a class as read only, so that we can read only its value, we cannot write. Then how to do it? Already in class concept I showed you, na? So in a class, so we have a property. I want this property to be read only. I don't want it to allow to assign value, only read the value. Then what to do? Then generally what we do, we create a accessor, we create a getter, and through getter, we return the value and we don't design a setter. If there is no setter, then it becomes what? If there is no setter, only getter is there, then it becomes read only. That means you can just read, you cannot assign. I showed you example also. That means, but what TypeScript can do? TypeScript can directly put as read only. That's good. TypeScript can use directly read only. You don't need to have an extra implementation. So it makes developers' life easy. Without writing complex, lengthy logics, in simple way they can achieve. But JavaScript don't understand that read-only word. Then it will translate that into the way how it understand. That means by using accessors and all, it will convert that. So you don't write in JavaScript, you write in TypeScript. It will translate everything into JavaScript. That is the concept of TypeScript. So without JavaScript, you cannot handle TypeScript. So you have to have complete knowledge of TypeScript, JavaScript to handle TypeScript. So how this TypeScript works? Let's see one example. That means now we will see the concept of how TypeScript works. For that, you need to understand how TypeScript works. For that, you need to understand TypeScript architecture. You need to understand the TypeScript architecture, how TypeScript works. This we will use in our React. So, what is the basic architecture of TypeScript? How TypeScript works internally, what it contains internally. Let's see the basic architecture of TypeScript. Actually, TypeScript internally contains so many things. So this is the concept of TypeScript. Means this is the basic evolution. First release, these are all internal releases. Huh? These are all internal releases of TypeScript. Officially, it is made available to all the public from 2014 onwards, right? And you see, this is Anders Hazelberg. He is the chief architect of .NET C# language, and he is the architect of TypeScript language. And this is TypeScript. This is TypeScript architecture. So how TypeScript is built, what it contains actually. Let's see the architecture of TypeScript. From the bottom, first you can see that TypeScript have a core compiler. TypeScript is having a core compiler. What is this core compiler? So first in the TypeScript, we have a core compiler. TypeScript core compiler. We have a TypeScript core compiler. Actually, what is this core compiler's job is? This core compiler is responsible for translating the TypeScript code into the understandable binary code, means operating system. That means how a computer can understand. You written and it need to be translated. Inside the compiler, there are so many components. Usually every compiler internally has so many components. Some languages will teach you how they work. Some languages will tell you just like compiler, it will translate. But how compiler translates internally everything, that is an experience level question. That means in if you put 10, 10, 11 years experience, 10 years experience above like that, then usually you may face the questions like, okay, in compiler, who will manage output activities? In compiler, who will manage the input activities? Such questions are asked. A fresher just knows a compiler for translating, but it is very difficult, means we can't expect a fresher to know how a compiler works internally. Inside the compiler, what is present. We don't even expect and we never ask such. But these days, at experience level, fresher level, they are asking to know whether they know in depth about the concept. So internally, a compiler contains lot of things. What are those components inside compiler? Actually, the core compiler is responsible for translating the TypeScript code into native code, native code of operating system, OS, into the native code of operating system. So it tracks and reports the errors in, it tracks and reports the errors in code. While compiling, it will track and report the errors in the code. What are the problems in the code? It will report it. So actually, it comprises of various components. That means internally, this TypeScript core compiler has so many components. Like you can see that in this, it is having so many components: core TS, program TS, scanner TS, parser TS, checker TS, emitter TS. Do you know what they are? For example, do you know in C like language, you have a function called scanf. Scanner is a compiler component which is responsible for managing all input activities. Input activities. That means in a computer programming language, the input activities are managed by a compiler component called scanner. So that is the reason the word scanf represents an input in computer programming usually. Scanner is responsible for managing input activities in a program. Output is managed by emitter. Emitter is responsible for managing output. Data type conversions is managed by parser. Parser is responsible for converting one type to another. And data type verification is done by checker. Checker verifies the type, whether the type you initialize and the type you are storing are same or not. It will check. And the keywords and the program blocks are verified by program.ts. You return a keyword which for each, it will verify whether that keyword is a word of language or not. And it will report the problem. That is program structure, syntax, everything is verified by whom? Program.ts. And core TS is responsible for uh, importing all the libraries that are required for compiling. To start compiling, it has to import some libraries. All that libraries importing is done by core TS. So internally, a compiler has a lot of things. So what are these actually? Core.ts. It imports the basic libraries required to compile. So program.ts, it verifies the syntax, keywords, code blocks, etc. Parser.ts, it is responsible for type conversion. Checker.ts, so it is responsible for data type checking. So we have scanner.ts. It manages the input activities. We have the emitter.ts. It manages the output activities. So we have checker, parser, emitter, scanner, program, and core. This is a core compiler. So whatever the TypeScript code you write, it is first translated into the understandable of operating system by using a core compiler. After that, that means now there are no errors. It is completely free of errors. That means the code is ready. But this code cannot run on browser because browser cannot understand TypeScript. But very recently, just 2-3 weeks back, Microsoft officially announced a successful trail run of TypeScript in browser, which is a revolution. That means Microsoft officially announced a few weeks back that they had a successful trail run of TypeScript directly in browser. But it is just a trail run. In browser, TypeScript successfully executed directly. But it is just a trail run. It will take years of time to get into the act. Because see, we are not expecting a replacement. And we are not expecting even very soon also. That means JavaScript is forever. It is guaranteed for next 10 years, 20 years also. Right? There is no point of that. Because even Microsoft has a successful trail run to make it practically run on web with all types of different browsers. They have a lot of challenges to face. And that is not so easy because even today, after almost 30-40 years of web, even today, we don't have a solution for the problems in JavaScript. Do you know JavaScript still is not browser compatible? That means it have compatibility issues even today. We are unable to resolve them. Still, we have compatibility issues. That is the reason we use libraries like jQuery and others. So the point is, even TypeScript have a successful trail run. It will take lot of time to get into act. That means we are expecting to have a TypeScript language directly running on browsers. They made a trail run, but it is good, but it is not yet perfect, complete, right? So JavaScript is the only language understandable to browser. So you written TypeScript, it translated and it is processed and it is ready, but it cannot run in browser. Why? Browser can run only JavaScript. So now what we need is, we need another compiler. That is, TypeScript have a standalone compiler. TypeScript have a standalone compiler. And actually it is managed by, so it is managed by tsc.ts. TypeScript have a standalone compiler. Now, why you have two compilers? So one compiler is to check the errors. Once it is free of errors, so the standalone compiler will translate the TypeScript code into JavaScript. It will translate the TypeScript code into JavaScript. That means, what is the job of this? So it is managed by tsc.ts. It is managed by tsc.ts. So two compilers are working in the background. One compiler will check, are there any issues in your program? Another compiler will convert that program into JavaScript after successful. Remember, converting TypeScript into JavaScript is not required every time. I already told you, directly several apps are built in TypeScript. We build several apps directly in TypeScript. Microsoft people use TypeScript as an individual language. Then they don't need to convert into JavaScript. They directly use TypeScript. They run directly TypeScript. So for us, in order to use in web, we have to translate it into JavaScript. That's the reason we need another compiler. And it is called as transcompiler. You see, there is another compiler, the core compiler and the standalone compiler. So this will verify your code. After successfully translating, it will convert in, this will convert into JavaScript. That is two important components. What is a language service? Already we know what is a service. Service means what? Already we discussed about services, provider, consumer. I told you about service. What is a service? Service is a predefined business logic. It is a predefined business logic. So whatever the TypeScript compiler needs to verify whether this keyword is belonging to TypeScript language or not, the syntax is TypeScript syntax or not, that is all maintained in the language service. That means TypeScript compiler will compile by verifying from language service. That means language service provides all the library which is used by TypeScript compiler to compile the code. That means whether that keyword is a part of TypeScript language or not, is that syntax correct or not, that is actually present in language service. Language service will provide the library that is required for TypeScript. TypeScript related all library is provided by language service. So compiler will just compile, but from where it will verify and compile? It will get it from language service. So another component is language service. We have services.ts. So a service is predefined business logic. A service is predefined business logic. It provides a set of libraries required for TypeScript language. A set of libraries required for TypeScript language. So it is managed by services.ts. It is managed by services.ts. We have TypeScript language. So we have core compiler, the standalone compiler, and the language service. Language service. Next, important in the TypeScript language architecture, you will find a TS server. What is the job of a server? Uh, Server responsibility hosting applications and managing the request and response. So that is the primary point. That means where your applications are hosted, the applications are hosted on a server. And what server will do? Manage the request and send a response. So TypeScript programs are hosted in an internal server. All the TypeScript programs are managed by an internal server. The input, output, the request response to TypeScript program is managed by TS server. So a TypeScript server is present in TypeScript, which is responsible for handling the request and response. The request and response, that means hosting, compiling, everything. That means TS server. We can say TypeScript server. It is server.ts. It is responsible for hosting and managing the request or request and response. It is managed by server.ts. Server.ts. Right. Next, important, we have shim. Shims are present. VS shims actually. VS shim. We have shims.ts. Actually, this is shim. Shim is one very important thing. Actually, modern programming languages have this shim, but you may not know about it. Even Java, .NET languages, they have these shims. Shim libraries are present. Shim APIs are present. That means many people are not aware of that much in depth about the concepts because you are learning Java or .NET or some programming languages like OOP languages So these languages are built by architects. You are a developer who is using those libraries and building app. So you are a developer, and what is the job of developer is use the libraries and build an app. And who build those libraries? The architects will build the libraries. They build libraries to serve different situations. So you are learning some Java, .NET, Python, PHP like this means you are just using the library which is already built. Suppose you have array functions, string functions, math functions, means how their functions are working, they are already built. That means somebody built an array class. They designed array methods. And you are not creating the methods, you are using those methods. So at that level, people know these kind of terms. Means this is a very general thing for architects in shims, about shims. Java, .NET all have shims. Actually, do you know what is the concept of shim? Any technology who claims that we are platform independent. Platform independent means what? They can run on any operating system. That is because of shim only. Because of shims. Shims are responsible for making the code suitable for every operating system. They are responsible for doing that. Platform neutral. They can make your code platform neutral. We call that code as managed code. We have two types of codes, programming codes, unmanaged and managed. Unmanaged code is platform dependent code. iOS means only iOS. Android means only Android. That is the reason you see several apps of Android are not available for iOS. iOS apps are not available on Android, but some apps are available on both. That means the point is making the code platform neutral. And the code which is platform neutral is called managed code. We have unmanaged code and managed. That work is done by shims. So if any technology claims that we are platform neutral, class platform, that is because of shims. Actual shim library is present. Suppose Java shim library, you can see there is a Java shim library. So this is shim library. This is a shim library available for various technologies. Java shim libraries are present, .NET shim libraries are present. Java uses in JDBC connectivities and all internally. They are used in various places. This is just I search, I given you on Java. Actually, C# shim libraries are present. So shims are present. These are shims library. So Microsoft technologies have a shim libraries. Now, what is the point about shim is it is making your operating code OS neutral. And remember, the OS neutral code is called managed code. That means you have a language service. This language service is platform dependent. Shimmers will take them and convert them into managed. That means before that they are unmanaged. Actually, because it's, remember, this is the architecture of Microsoft. Microsoft have a specific compiling architecture. They follow certain architecture. Actually, what happens is you return the code in different languages you may return. Suppose C# or TypeScript like this. This is all Microsoft related. What happens is this code is taken by compiler. And the compiler, what it will do is it will translate this code into the operating system code. That means it is translating into OS code. Operating system understandable code. Actually, we call this as native code. Now, what happens is if it is directly compiling into the native code, this code is called unmanaged code. Unmanaged code. This can directly work on any operating system. Any OS can use it. Any OS can use it. But on which OS they compiled, it will run on only that OS. It will not run on other operating system. This code is further taken and it is translated into, so it is translated into managed code. And once it is translated into managed code, this code is available to all operating systems. Every operating system can understand. It is not for any specific operating system. That means after compiling, it is platform dependent. After compiling, it will undergo another process where it is translated into managed code. That managed code is available to all operating systems. That is the architecture of, actually, I will show some architecture. Yeah. Means this is not required for you, but I will show a small architecture here. Generally, Microsoft compiling architecture usually will be like this. Whatever the code you written, compiled, and it is unmanaged. After it generates an intermediate language code. So this code is given to a compiler which will convert that into the native code. Native code means it can run on every operating system service. This is the model of compiling inside the architecture of Microsoft technology. Remember, TypeScript completely follows all Microsoft terminology. In Microsoft languages, what terms they use, what concepts they use, same it will follow everything. Because it is a Microsoft language. So it has all the abilities and features, right? So the point about shim is, and one interesting point is, do you know why it is called that word shim? Why it is called that word shim? Interesting concept about that is actually the word shim came from shrimp. Shrimp. The word shrimp came from the word shrimp. Actually, prawns and shrimps. Prawns and shrimp. That means we have a prawn and a shrimp. You see, prawns and shrimp. Suppose images, I'll show you. That's prawn and shrimp. These two look similar, but there is a technical difference between them. You may think prawns, right? All are not prawns. Same prawns, shrimps are present. Do you know difference between a prawn and a shrimp is a shrimp is gender neutral. It is not male or female. They are gender neutral. They are not male or female. That exactly it looks like a prawn, but it is gender neutral. The word shim represents that it is an platform neutral. That means it is not specific platform. It is platform neutral. It can run on any platform. That's the terminology actually. So it is there in several programming languages. So it is responsible for generating managed language code. Language code. Managed code is the code understandable to every operating system. So it makes the language platform neutral. It makes the language platform neutral. That is the concept of shim. And every technology that claims that they are platform independent, that they have to use this shims internally. They have to use the shims. So it is managed by shims.ts. And you have a managed language service. Managed language service. It is the language. It is a language service which is platform neutral. It is a language service which is platform neutral. So it provides platform independent libraries. It provides platform independent libraries. Right. So the shims and the managed. These are all the components of TypeScript language. And in the architecture, you can see editors. That is not a part of architecture. It is just a separate point. Editors is nothing but it is just to tell that it supports all editors. That means TypeScript can run on all editors. Whatever editors are available, you can use TypeScript everywhere. That means in editors, it will give the complete support. Right. Now, how to install and use this TypeScript? We'll see. TypeScript, TypeScript is not directly understandable. So, and you cannot write TypeScript programs directly and run. JavaScript doesn't require any special installation. It will work in every browser. But for TypeScript, you have to install. You need to have the complete library of TypeScript on your PC. So set up TypeScript for your PC. How do we do that? Is open command prompt. So run the command. So we have to run the command that will be npm install globally TypeScript. Check the version tsc-v. TSC is TypeScript transcompiler, standalone compiler. This standalone compiler internally uses a core compiler. It internally uses a core compiler. You have to install TypeScript. So let's see how to install the TypeScript language. This is the command prompt. And from your command prompt, anywhere you can type npm install globally TypeScript. If you don't use globally, it will install only in that drive. Globally means in any project you can use now. That means even for Angular projects or Vue or any another project also we can use TypeScript. So we are installing globally TypeScript on the PC. Once it is installed, so we have already it is installed. So we have tsc-v. it will get the version of TypeScript. So this is the latest version of TypeScript we have. But companies are still using TypeScript 4 version. TypeScript 5.4.5, that is the latest version of TypeScript. But several companies still on 4. 4 is the very stable version for several projects. Even Angular also uses 4 version only. So, however, we will see what are the latest features available. What is the latest version till date we have? 5x. We'll say 5x, 5.4 version. But companies still using 4 only. And once you are ready with this TypeScript, we can now build one project. But first, we will not build a React project. What we will do is first we will learn this language. We should learn the language first. After learning the language, we can use in React. So, because it is a language, you need some additional knowledge. Whatever JavaScript features are there, same, but lot of changes. Those changes, if you know, that is enough. We have to learn the changes, how it is different from JavaScript. First, we will learn programming, all the TypeScript programming differences. Then we will implement in React, right? That we'll see next session. Tomorrow we will do that. In tomorrow's session, we will start designing a program with TypeScript. We will see what is its structure, how it works, how TypeScript programming works. And here I will detailedly explain TypeScript. That is enough later even for your Angular or anything if you are learning. That means I will give you a complete detail on TypeScript, what is needed for not only for React, anywhere. That means anywhere, any web technology is using TypeScript, this knowledge will be enough, what you learned in this class. So detailedly we will discuss about all the features, right? Tomorrow we'll continue, right?